About is just our opinion and general in nature and should never be considered as personal advice. Caleb Gray, welcome to Smashed Avo Property.
Thanks for having me.
Mate, I am super pumped to talk to you today. You're a bit of a young gun. You've locked in and secured your first property and you've got big things ahead. So keen to delve into a bit of your background and your story and what your goals look like. But first and foremost, why don't you give us a little bit of an in-depth 30-second background history of yourself?
Yep, no worries. So my name's Caleb Gray. I'm 23. I'm a commercial building surveyor. So essentially I issue building approvals and sign off on buildings, larger buildings, hotels, shopping centres and stuff like that. I also just started my own buyer's agency business, which is keeping me busy. I'm originally from the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria, but I've moved up to the Gold Coast for work and lifestyle about 3 years ago, and currently enjoying life at the moment. I hate to say it, I feel a bit guilty, but with all this corona stuff going on, Gold Coast is a pretty good place to be stuck, to be honest. It's pretty nice for winter.
Yeah, 100%. It's pretty daunting down here going back into phase 2 of the lockdown and talks of going into stage 4 again, which would be pretty brutal. But I suppose we have to do it. We have to kill it off. So the quicker and faster we can do that, the better off we're going to be long term. But yeah, being in the Goldie wouldn't be a bad place to be. Unfortunately, I think the rest of your family's down here, so you can't come and visit them, which is a bit of a shame. But at least you've got a couple of beaches to get to.
Yeah, that's right. I've had to cancel my trips back to Melbourne a couple of times this year to try and visit family. But yeah, that's right. Got to do the right thing and everyone's got to work together and we'll get through this.
So building surveying, how did you manage to get into that one? What was the thought process behind that career path and are you enjoying it so far?
Yeah, so how I got into building surveying and sort of my property investment journey kind of coincide. It started off with my uncle, who's a building surveyor. I saw he was doing pretty well in life. He didn't seem to be working too hard, and he was earning quite a bit of money. So I was like, yeah, I like that. I want to be involved in construction, but I'm useless on the tools, so why not do it via the office, looking at plans and assessing it. So I kind of got into it through him. He's also kind of what inspired me to get into property investing as well. So yeah, I've been working as a building surveyor for 3.5, 4 years now. It's really interesting. Every day you're learning something new. You're working on different projects, small, large, and yeah, you're always learning. It keeps you on your toes. It's definitely not boring. Do I want to do it forever? Probably not. I'd like to get involved in property more. I think over the last 5 years, I've really discovered that that's a passion that sort of burns inside me and what gets me out of bed every morning. So I'm not in a rush. I definitely enjoy building surveying and it earns me my keep for the moment, which is helping me get started in property. But in the future, definitely look to transition across to probably a buyer's agent is the path at the moment.
Yeah, it seems like you're on that trajectory as well. Do you get to do any resi properties or is it just sort of commercial and larger buildings?
No, so I started originally when I was back in Melbourne. I started at council and we were doing a lot of inspections just on residential properties and stuff like that. But now, that was only a short period of time. Now I'm purely in commercial property. I like it a bit more. You're just working with other professionals, and I guess it's a 3-year period, I guess, for some of those properties. So it's a big project, and then you get to drive past and say, "Hey, I was involved in that." It's pretty cool. But each to their own, really.
Yeah, exactly. And was it hard to get into? Like, did you have to do a uni degree or was it just like a diploma or?
So there's different levels. If you want to just work in residential, you can just do a TAFE diploma, which I did originally. And then when you get into commercial, you've got to go and do your degree, and then you can do like your masters and you can become a level 1, which means you can sign off anything. I'm not fully there yet. I've still got to go back and study to get that level 1, but I'm kind of helping out in the background and I guess I'm not signing it myself. I'm helping those level ones sign off those properties.
Yeah, that's cool that you get that background as well. Like you kind of get that, you get to see what's happening in the forefront and then decide if you want to go and do it. Do you think you will?
At the moment, I'm kind of holding off. I think it will be my backup plan. Like building surveying
Yeah.
is my backup plan.
Yeah.
It's not the worst job in the world, that's for sure. I definitely, and the people I work for at the moment are very, very good, and I love working for them. But does it get me out of bed every morning? Probably not. So if I work as a transition as a buyer's agent over the next few years, if that doesn't work out or I don't enjoy it, I can always come back to this, and at least I've got that experience there, and I kind of know what I'm in for. It's a pretty good fallback.
Yeah, it's a great base to have. And at least you can pursue your passion in the meantime as well, like by starting the buyer's agency and all that sort of stuff. Do you want to, how has that transition been? Have you just been doing it as like a side hustle sort of thing? Have you got qualified and everything and then started to get a couple of clients, or how's that transitioning at the moment?
Yeah, that's right. So it's been a side hustle at the moment, occupying most nights and weekends. I started it, to be honest, it probably goes back like 4 or 5 years when I started listening to podcasts on the way to work, and I started getting interested in property. And I thought at the start maybe it was just me because it was for my own personal gains. Like I could see how it could transform people's lives. But then after I bought my first property, I was still listening to podcasts, still consuming books, head deep in it. I knew that like I wanted to make this my job, and I started. I'm all licensed, and started earlier this year. Helped out a few friends and family, which was good to get the ball rolling. And then coronavirus kind of kicked in, and it's allowed me to grow probably as a buyer's agent myself and work on some of the background stuff in the business. But probably over the last month, there's been a bit more optimism in the market. So a few clients have come on, which is good. It's really exciting.
Yeah, it's such a bug. I think, the biggest commonality with all the guests that I get on is they get the property bug, and you sort of hear it and you're kind of like, what does it mean? But it's just this fire in your belly. Like you just like, it's all you like. I'm the same. Like I still listen to all the podcasts. I still, watch YouTube videos. I'm still trying to educate myself. I go back and read the books that I read when I was, 16. Like it's such a passion, and you just want to learn and consume as much as you can. And it's kind of like the more you learn, the more you figure out. And like, I don't know, it's like a forever cycle. It's pretty cool. And it's great to hear that you still like have that drive behind you and leading that into your passion. So you've done pretty well there. And like, in terms of where you're located, like obviously the sentiment around Sydney and Melbourne has been pretty lower, but to be where you are in Queensland, like sentiment could be completely different, and that's the whole basis behind there's different markets within Australia, and every market's going through their different cycles and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of cool that you have been able to see some light at the end of the tunnel of what we are going through at the moment. So totally interesting to see you grow and develop there. So onto your personal property journey. What was that like getting started? I mean, how old were you when the bug really started? Was it the podcast that ignited that, or was there a book or something? And then how long, when did it tick in your mind that you actually needed to start saving for a deposit to buy a house?
Yeah. So it's probably underlying in my childhood. Both my parents, concreter and a nurse, worked like extremely hard. And I never went without. I had a really good upbringing, but money was always tight. Like it was always money conscious. It was raised a lot. And as I said, I got everything I needed. And I did a lot of sport growing up. So mum and dad spent a lot of time driving me places and spending money on fees, shoes, and accommodation to go and stay places for sport. So I never missed out, but I just saw that working way too hard and didn't have much to show for it, not enough. They had their own home, and that was pretty much it. And conversely, as I said earlier, my uncle was a building surveyor, and he just bought a few properties, renovated a couple. He wasn't really like very strategic or anything. He just knew that's what he had to do, and he was probably in a bit better position. And I just drive kind of. Once you get out of school, you've got to make your own money, and you got your own choices with money. So when I was driving, probably an hour each way to work in the morning. I thought, well, let's make some use of this time. And I started listening to property podcasts, and I couldn't get enough of it. I didn't want to get out of the car. I was like, this is magical. Like, you can literally chuck down a small deposit and you can own this bigger asset, and then someone can pay it off for you. And then in 30 years time, it'll be worth double, triple what you paid for it. Like, it just didn't not make sense to me. Like, I was just, why aren't more people doing this? Like,
Yeah.
So that, I was probably 18, 19 then. I was like, I've got to get into this. I've got to save. So while I was at home, just saved a heap. I wasn't someone who just lived off beans, or I wasn't strict. I still went overseas a couple of times, but I was definitely conscious. I didn't go and blow it on expensive cars or get a loan or, I don't know, more shoes or anything like that. Like, I was very conscious on that's where I wanted to be. So yeah, it probably took me like 2 or 3 years to save up about 30 grand, I think. But then I ended up moving to the Gold Coast, and that was just an opportunity that arose with work. Very lucky that they had an opportunity here on the Gold Coast that I could step into, and I always wanted to move to the Gold Coast. I do surf lifesaving, not very well, but I enjoy it. So I love being in the ocean. So I thought, if there's an opportunity for me to move up there with work, I'd definitely take it. And I thought, oh, let's just see how we go. You know, you only live once. You got to do these things. So I moved up within about 3 weeks, I think, like from the first interview to just up there. I moved.
Wow.
So I probably put a hold on my savings for about a year, and I look back on it and I kind of think you should have got into something straight away. But at the same time, I didn't know if I was going to stay there. I didn't know if I was going to like it. I was still settling in. I'm sure most people who've moved away from home or who've gone overseas know that it does take time to settle in. You kind of move around, where your friends, what are you doing? You don't want to lock yourself in. But after about a year of being up here, I realised this is where I want to stay for a bit, long enough to buy something that I could renovate, and then whenever I want to move back, I'd hold the property. It also gave me that time probably over the year to research the Gold Coast a bit better, because everyone thinks pretty badly of the Gold Coast from a property point of view. There's a lot of high rises up here, and there's a lot of pretty bad stock, to be honest. But there's also a lot of very good stock that's gone up over the last probably 10 years a fair bit. It's kind of flown under the radar. So hopefully it keeps going. It's a lovely place to live.
Yeah, for sure. I think the cool thing about that, like I'm the same, like I grew up in Sydney and moved to Melbourne probably around the same time you did, or the same age you did. And it is hard. Like, it is hard to sort of get your feet on the ground and understand, get used to a different location, get used to, like I moved for my partner, who's now my wife. So at least I had that sort of family grounding. But yeah, it's hard to make your own friends and what career path you're going to go down and all that sort of stuff. And the cool thing about you taking your time, although you may look at it now and go, I could have saved a lot harder, I could have got into a property, I could have done X, Y, and Z, is you'll always now have that sort of fundamental of understanding the local area of where you are. I think that's super critical moving forward in your life too, because like I want to invest in that location future on in my life, but I don't know the walkways, I don't know the shops, I don't know, anything in that area. And that's why, I'm a big advocate of buyer's agents, because, and specifically local buyer's agents, because they do understand that stuff. They do have a feel for the ground. They do know, where the little cut-off walkways are to the local train station and all those sort of like little critical things you wouldn't know unless you had your boots on the ground. So I think that's really cool that you've got that background, not only in Melbourne, but in Brisbane as well. Like that's awesome. Oh, the Goldie, sorry. Yeah, so I think that's awesome. And speaking of like the saving habits when you were younger, was there anything like, because a lot of people I talk to have little tricks, like they, put it into, their sister's account or whatever, or like they'd say that they wouldn't, they'd save $50 every week, and after a month they'd go out and spend $200 or something. Like they had some little trick. Was there any little trick that you did, or was it just being super conscious of those bigger purchases?
Probably going back to when I was a kid. It came from, I had to hide the money from myself in a sense. I never worked until I was 18. I was lucky enough that my parents didn't force me. They just said, try and focus on school and focus on sport. You have plenty of time to work. So used to make money last from my birthdays, like a full year. And I just hide that in places, and then I'd be like cleaning up and I'd find money and I'm like, oh, cool, I forgot about that. So I still I guess kind of do that now. I have a separate card that I pay myself weekly. So I get paid monthly from work and then just pay myself weekly. I know that that's the amount that I've got for the week. If I see 5-6 grand in my bank account, I'm like, yeah, this is good. This is good. I just transfer, I think it's like 200, 220, depending on what I'm feeling. And I see that for the week, and that's it. Once it's gone, it's gone. If there's some left over, then there's some left over. Let's go out for dinner or something. But yeah, I've tried budgeting, but it's a bit too much for me to stay on top of. I think it's more of an automatic process where it's a quick glance at my app. I go, oh, this much left. Cool. Like, that's what I got.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's essentially just, as you said, you're hiding your money for you, and if you do want to buy something, then you can leave money in there. Like you can say, oh no, I'm not going to go out this week, but next week we'll go out and spend $200 on a really nice dinner or something. Like at least you're comfortable with yourself knowing that you can still treat yourself, but after rewarding yourself first. You know what I mean? Like you've got to, it's more of a reward than just going out and splurging because you've seen $5,000 in your account or whatever. So that's really cool. I think a lot of people sort of implement a similar sort of trick in terms of hiding their money away from them. So that's super interesting. And so you indicated that you saved about 30 grand. Did you use, was that a 10% deposit, a 5% deposit? Like how did that sort of first transition look?
I think it ended up being about 7% roughly. So yeah, I was up in that LMI range, which I was more than happy to pay. I think you've said it before that avoid it when you can, but use it when you need to. Definitely a big advocate of that. If it's I think it was like 8 grand or something, which was included in the loan. Like you don't see it to get me into a property that does the heavy lifting for you. Like that's just a no-brainer. So that's where, I was. So yeah, I had about 30 grand. Once you include some costs in there as well, it came, to about a 7% deposit for the purchase.
Nice. And you were comfortable with that? Was there any obviously you listened to a lot of podcasts, but was there anything that like shocked you when you purchased a property? Because there are a few sort of like not hidden costs, but additional costs that you're kind of like, oh really, is stamp duty that much? Or really, is paying a conveyance that much? Is there anything that kind of caught you off guard?
I don't think like none of the purchase costs and the costs associated with it did, but just moving into your own house, paying for like a fridge, dishwasher, and just like stupid stuff like that. You're just like, oh, what? Like I shouldn't have to pay for this. I don't want this. This is what mum and dad pay for. So just little things like that. It takes you a while to get your feet on the ground and just work out, get yourself sorted. Make sure when you got rates and body corp that comes through, like that's a lump sum that you got to pay, and be aware of that coming through every 6 months. I think that just takes 6 months, a year to get used to that. But in terms of like now ongoing payments, the mortgage just comes out. I'm just used to it. It's a lot cheaper here to buy and have a mortgage than renting. That was the main reason I actually bought on the Gold Coast, because like everyone else is, you're a little bit skeptical of it. But I guess once you dive down into it and you're buying in a good area and a good asset, you're a bit more comfortable. But I looked at it, well, I think I pay my mortgage is like $350 at the moment a week, which is nothing. And we weren't getting into a nice unit like this for less than $450. So it's just a no-brainer. I'd rather control it and then also do renovations when I can.
Why is that? Why is it more expensive to rent up there than to own a house and or to pay off a mortgage? And why don't more people do it, do you think? Is there something behind it?
I think it's just compared to Melbourne and Sydney, it's not as expensive. So the rent is a bit more in comparison to the mortgage. I think that's what it comes down to. They're just a bit more high yielding. A lot of people up here kind of, they're up here for the lifestyle. they're probably a bit more freedom people and shift a little bit, so they're not looking to get locked down. But in saying that, I guess there are a lot of people. Obviously, not everyone's renters here. People do buy. So, but definitely that
Yeah.
unit market, I reckon most people, just kind of float around and want that freedom.
Yeah, and I'm probably in a similar situation that you were, like moving there for work or moving there for lifestyle and just wanted to rent and get a feel for it. So makes sense. I was just wondering if there's any sort of fundamentals there or reason behind it. But moving forward, what is your goal for investing? Like, have you got a certain plan? Have you got a certain number of properties you want to get to? Have you got a certain asset value that you want to get to? Do you want to live off the passive income? How does that look for you?
Yeah, I definitely want to invest in property to create a passive income. It's funny, whenever I talk to someone, I'm always talking about what's your end goal. Let's reverse engineer that to work out how many properties you need and what type of properties. Myself personally, like I'm only 23. I don't know what I'm going to be doing in 40 years. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with my career and nothing's set in stone. So I know in the background that property is something that I want to rely on as a passive income. What it actually looks like and how I get there, I'm still kind of working that out. I know at the moment I want to be free. I don't want to be locked down into a job as a building surveyor. If I might change my mind and I want to do something else, I want that freedom. I still want to be able to travel as well and do things while I'm young. I think it's really important that you still live a life essentially and don't lock yourself up to anything. So at the moment it's probably higher yielding positive geared properties. So my next purchase will be another one similar to this, probably a house in a regional area that looks after itself. I think that's important for me just to keep that cash flow moving while I'm young. But then once I become a bit more successful and I have a bigger income, then definitely will add some of those higher growth properties in there that might cost a little bit more. And then I guess once your career is set and you're happy with what you're doing, narrow that down a bit more. So yeah, it's a bit hard because a lot of people my age don't know what they want to do either. So you just I want to keep the ball rolling. That's all I know. So I want to keep investing and keep it ticking over. What it looks like at the end, who knows, but we'll sort that out as we go along.
Yeah, that's super cool. Like you're so young and not so young, but you're still very young. And, you understand that it's okay to travel. Like we took, we traveled for like 6 months in total, I reckon, since, I was 24, and that's been the best life experience I could ever have. Like, and ultimately, like that's what we're in this for, is to, build an income source or generate income that allows us to have a flexible lifestyle. And, if you've got the opportunity to enjoy that sort of flexible lifestyle now, if you're, on a good income, you can still afford the mortgage and have a nice holiday, then, in my opinion, you're not really setting yourself back too much. You're moving you've delayed gratification, but you can enjoy it along the way as well. I think would you rather travel now while you're young or travel while you're older as well? Like it could be two very different experiences. So, and I think life experience, like being overseas has taught me so much, especially Greece and Italy. Like it's just a completely different way of living. And that's been so crucial just to understand what I actually want in life as well. And like, this is the path that I want to go down, and this is the asset class that I want to invest in. And it just gives you time to rethink and all that sort of stuff. So that's super cool that you've thought through that, mate. And you kind of have gone down all these different directions as well. So you can sort of pick and choose. Like if you want to go full bore with your surveying, you can do the masters and keep going down that. You've got your buyer's agency on the side. You're a lifesaver, so you can, or surf lifesaver. So if you want to hang out on the beach every day, you can do that as well. It's pretty cool that there's like all these different avenues that you want to go down, and you just know in the background that you want to be in property too. So I think you've got it pretty set there. Now, let's talk about the specific property that you bought. Was there any sort of strategic move that you did when purchasing that one? Was there like a negotiation skill that you used? Was there, local knowledge that you used? I mean, what really drove you to get that property? And was there like something specific that you could give to us to talk about?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a funny story. I was kind of looking for a little bit at some different properties. Anyone who knows the Gold Coast, I was kind of looking around Miami, Nobby's Ark. There's a nice little sort of village there with some bars and cafes near the beach, nice parks, really lovely spot. I was looking there, and I was looking at this one property, and I was kind of negotiating with the agent. I think it was closer as like 410 or something like that. I was like, I need to find some comparables to kind of say, hey, this is selling for this, or this is just sold for this. Let's kind of meet in the middle, or come on my level a little bit. And I was just on Domain, and there was this one property that wasn't on realestate.com that I was like, this is really cheap. Like, what's wrong with this property? So I was like, I'll just go and inspect it just to go and see. And I went and had a look at it, and I met the agent, and he was like, oh yeah, they're just an older couple. They don't want to spend money on marketing. I was like, oh, so not many people have seen it. And I did like kind of other comparables on that. And I was like, this one stacks up more than what I'm looking at. There's nothing off the highway in a nicer spot that's close to this. I'm going to go for this 100%. The outside was a bit rough, but paint is what fixed that. And it was definitely dated, but that's what I wanted. I wanted to come in and be able to just do a cosmetic renovation. So I ended up, going for this one that I was just planning on using as a bit of bait. I ended up purchasing. It's in Palm Beach, for those who know the Gold Coast. It's about 300 meters from Tallabudgera Creek and the beach. So kind of in the middle. It's every morning we get to walk past the beach and the creek with our dog. I love it here. It's such a good spot. And kind of the Gold Coast, as it comes down south, it narrows up and there's just no land. The hinterland comes towards it. So I was like, look, there's no more land here. Like, people aren't going to be building any more properties here. It's pretty tight. It's only going to go up in the future. I'd seen with housing, they'd gone through a spike, and I was like, this is a block of 4 brick, nice little solid thing. It just made sense.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And obviously, you know, you probably listen to the same podcast that I do, and they talk about these sort of solid sort of 60s, 70s built double brick units as being an asset class. And I think, did that give you the confidence? Because obviously you were talking about before how the difference between investor stock and investor grade stock is that because of the podcast? Like, is that what gave you that final confirmation to say, okay, even though this is a unit, I think it's still going to be an okay purchase?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you see, I guess, in the news lately, there's been a lot of stuff about the new builds that probably aren't up to scratch, and there's a bit of issues with them. And I just know personally, I would rather live in a block of 4, block of 6, nice sturdy build that's been there for 30 years and still looks the same, rather than a 30-story tower with a bunch of other people. That was, to put it basically, that's how I would want to live. And I know a lot of other people are in the same position. They've done well over time, and they'll continue to do well. They're not making more of them either, so they're scarce. That was a big driver for me. Scarcity is a big one to look out for.
Yeah, that's cool. And you get that like 30-year history. I don't know what age it was, sorry, but you get that history of like how it has performed over all the years, instead of like buying a brand new property. There is no history. You don't know how it's going to perform because it's brand new. Like, and you're paying for it being brand new. It's like driving a brand new car out of the dealership. You got to pay for all the fancy ovens and the fancy X, Y's and Z's, and that's why, Spruikers talk about getting depreciation off them, but realistically, why would you spend $1 to get 30 cents back? It's not, it seems pretty silly to me. So that's super cool. And I mean, looking forward in your sort of buyer's agent career and your future properties that you are going to purchase, is there a specific strategy that you are going to go for? Is there only certain properties that you want to buy? Is there only certain assets that you want to look out for? I mean, how does that strategy look like now?
Yeah. So in terms of being a buyer's agent, I want to niche for owner occupiers on the Gold Coast and the Mornington Peninsula, because they're the 2 places I know best, and kind of want to keep that lifestyle between the 2. They're both beautiful places, and I love being there. I've got a bit of family on both, so that's definitely from an owner occupier perspective where I want to be and help people purchase there, because I know the area as well. terms of investment strategies, I think it's really important that, and I bang on about this a little bit, is that the first meeting I have with a potential client is their situation, their risks, their goals. So I'm definitely not sold on any individual investing strategy. It's really depends on what the person's like and what their circumstances are, and then working through them. Okay, you're a doctor, you like that job, you can afford to go and buy a negatively geared property closer to the CBD and hold that, and it's not going to affect you. You know that's going to grow well over time. Or hey, you want to go and travel in 10 years and you don't have a large income, let's focus on those cash flow properties or pair them or whatever. So I think that's probably the most important thing as part of my job, is to actually listen to the client and what they want, and then help them achieve that, work backwards.
Yeah, that's cool. You're not just, forcing properties that you'd want to recommend to them. You're actually listening to their needs and wants and where they want to go, and setting them up for that, 10-year path. It's not, you're not going to know, as you were saying before, like you're not going to know exactly where you are and what you want to do and where you want to be in 10 years, but at least you can set them on that trajectory and they can shift and move in between to get there and align their goals and risks to them. So that's awesome. And what about risk? I mean, is there anything that you're doing to mitigate risk? I mean, you're saying there that you're pretty happy with the mortgage amount and that's pretty stable, and you're able to repay that pretty easily. Is there anything else that you're using to manage your risk?
Yeah. So personally, and I guess what I recommend to everyone as well, is having that buffer. Just depending on your risk tolerance, you have 3 or 6 months or 12 months. Just sitting there in case anything goes wrong. To be honest, being young and keen and risk hungry, I would have run it very fine. Like I'm obviously thinking about a second purchase, and always thought like she'll be right. And then coronavirus comes along and kind of just it reminds you. So I'm lucky I didn't pull the trigger on anything else or something like that. So it's definitely reinforced the need for a buffer there. Like, things just come out of nowhere. It doesn't matter how good you've got it. Like, anything random can happen. Something can happen to a loved one, or hopefully not. But yeah, stuff like that happens. So I think having a buffer is the most crucial thing. For younger people as well, I think if you're buying something you can renovate. It doesn't have to be much. Just even paint, carpet, maybe a new bathroom or something like that. That means you've also mitigated risk. If something were to go wrong and you need to sell it quickly, it's going to sell quickly and you're going to at least break even, if not gain a profit. So that's another risk mitigation strategy. And then also just buying in a good area that you know is going to grow over time. The longer you hold it, the more likely you are to sell for a profit if you needed to. So really just focusing on those good areas, and then trying to buy below market value, I guess, is an easy one. If you get a bargain, then you're more likely to be able to sell for more as well if you needed to. But I guess the end goal is that you don't sell and you don't need to. But you've always got to think of worst case scenario.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You touch on a whole bunch of things there. You can manufacture some equity if you need to. You can hold on to them for a longer period of time. I think the cash buffer is super important too. Like, I think that's one that gets a lot of people out. Like, if you're a lot of people that I talk to have like, okay, I've saved 50 grand. I want to buy a $500,000 property with a 10% deposit. And I'm kind of like, well, you got to account for at least 6% of purchasing costs you're going to lose. On top of that, you're going to be paying LMI because you're only using a 10% deposit if you have to pay lender's mortgage insurance. And on top of that, you're not going to have anything left over. Like, there's going to be nothing in your bank account for a rainy day. And I think, those things in combination all stacked up together, people don't realize that they may need another 10, 20, 30 grand just for security, and just to have those extra purchasing costs. Might have to go on a 95% loan, and then that's even more riskier, and they might not be comfortable with that sort of situation. So I think you touched on some pretty good things there, mate. And your current portfolio now, are you paying P&I? Are you paying debt down? Are you using an offset account? I mean, what's your LVR look like these days? And are you planning to pull out some equity anytime soon and go again, or how does that look?
Yep. So I purchased the property just over a year ago for 333. I think that was it. And I just got it revalued with all the internal stuff. I'm still working with Body Corp to paint the outside, so there's still a bit more to go, but I just got it revalued last week, and it came in at 380. So I spent about 15K and I got 50K back, which is pretty handy. So definitely want to take the equity out in the future. I'm just sorting out some numbers now to see what I can do. But my LVR, I think, is about 79% at the moment. So I guess it's what most people almost come in at. Like a lot of people have a 20% deposit, but I'm happy to get it back up around 90 to make another purchase, so long as I have got another buffer and I can renovate it. So there is that we are mitigating risk in a sense. It's not just, hey, give the banks all my properties and don't have much cash sitting there. Definitely got to be smart about it.
Yeah, that's cool. Oh, that's a great return in such a short amount of time as well. So, you've done pretty well. Only 15 grand invested and 50 grand back. So, looks pretty good, and it looks like you're setting yourself up pretty well for that second purchase. So, I'll have to get you back on when when you've executed on that one, mate. So you have talked a lot about podcasts and all that sort of stuff, but is there any books or anything that you've really encouraged you? Is there any what is your favorite resource? Is it the podcast? I mean, what do you delve into?
It's definitely podcasts. In the car a bit for work and heading off to training and stuff. So definitely podcasts. Try and smash them out as much as I can. I have read in terms of podcasts. Your podcast is amazing.
Thanks, mate.
Property Couch and Smart Property Investment. They're probably my three big ones there. In terms of books, yes, I couldn't really recommend any off the top. I've just kind of gone through them. All the classics, I think, you've seen they've worked over time. They're not like the ones from the 90s I loved reading, like Margaret Lomas and stuff like that. And you're like, these are the same fundamentals. They still work now. And it's just funny looking at some of the numbers. You're like, God damn, that would have been good. So I think just getting ahead in everything. There's plenty of stuff on Instagram, plenty of stuff on Twitter. And once you kind of find a few people that you trust, probably stick with them. I think there obviously is a lot of noise and it's good to be open to everything. But once you find some people who don't talk nonsense, who don't bang on about it being a get rich quick scheme, probably stick with them and follow their strategies. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think you're even talking about it online. Like it's a long-term play, as you say. These books that have been consistent throughout the generations. It's crazy to even talk about the numbers. Like I was talking to the lady next door who purchased in the same block when this block was built 30 years ago or whatever, and she said she purchased it for $9,000, and I'm thinking, mate, I would have loved to purchase it for $9,000. Like it's just crazy to see the numbers back then and how those fundamentals have continued to be the same moving forward. And although past performance is never an indicator of future performance, we can use how things have performed previously to sort of understand the correlation between the property market and wage growth and economics and all that sort of stuff as well. So I think it's a good one to take into consideration. And a lot of people talk about like, realestate.com and domain, but is there anything like online that you use that many people might not know about? Like, is there anything sort of like secret online tool that you use that people can do some research with?
I think if you're looking to buy, getting in touch with those real estate agents early and trying to befriend them, because they will send you stuff early, and you'll get access to it before it's on realestate.com.au or domain. In terms of stats, you're paying for RP data or SQM research. There's plenty of portals out there. I think it pays to try and go through all the different ones. There's heaps of smaller ones as well. Property is just sometimes, I don't know what happens. They might not filter in the search correctly or something. They might be just on a random website on the house or something like that. So just don't look at those two portals only. I'd definitely suggest just filtering through even real estate agents' individual websites. Some reason they're only on there. But yeah, just keeping your eyes open for everything and not ruling it out. I would say probably 90% of stuff is on those two portals, but definitely pays to keep your eyes wide open.
Yeah, 100%. I think, the biggest takeaway of talking to a whole lot of buyers agents like yourself is understanding that off market is a thing. Like you think that every property is going to be listed on real estate and domain, and you kind of hang on to them as a true indicator of everything that's on the market. But there's so many things that get sold pre-market. There's situations like you were saying that people don't really want to pay for marketing and all that sort of stuff, and would rather have that quick sale, that quick deal. And so, there's things that are going on that you just don't know about. And if you're not in the space, in the market, talking to people and getting some insights, then you may miss out on them. So I think that's pretty cool, because a lot of people talk about, Price Finder, or, all these other really cool websites you can use to find property statistics, but actually going firsthand and picking up the phone and talking to people on the ground will give you some clarity and some better insights.
Yeah.
So what motivates you to do all of this? Like, have you got a favorite quote? What motivates and gets you up in the morning?
I think, what motivates me for property investing is that I don't want to end up like my parents in the sense that they worked too hard for what they did. I saw them grind and I saw them work really, really hard, and it's really and it's definitely not in the cards now, but for my future kids, I just want to have that freedom to be with them, to drop them off at school, to go on a holiday, if we want to. I don't want to be forced into a job. I just want to have that freedom to do whatever I want. And that's not to say I don't want to work. I do want to work, and I do want to contribute to society. I love, being able to do that, but just having that freedom, that's definitely what gets me up and going in the morning, and why I'm on this mission to help other people buy properties and do it smartly. I think that's what gets me going. For people who are probably my age, I think do the numbers, have a think about it. It's definitely not a small purchase, but if everything stacks up, you just got to pull the trigger. It is daunting, but you won't regret it. It's a pretty safe option, if you avoid a few things. Even if you buy something terrible and it doesn't grow for 20 years, like someone else is paying for it, you got a renter in there. That's like worst case scenario. So yeah, definitely encourage people to get onto it and start saving now if you need to. Saving now is better than saving in 2 years' time.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh, well, that's some great final advice there, mate. Well, you've been an absolute killer. Plenty of insights there, and I love to see your journey and how it's panned out. I want to definitely get you back on if you're up for it on the next couple of purchases, and hopefully the listeners can follow your journey with us, mate. That sounds about all right with you.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds good.
All right, mate. Well, thanks again for coming on.